I wish I could close this. Then it will take a lot of time to start it up. Anyway, so we need a negative sign for this. This thing is negative, so that means this entire thing becomes a positive. How do you make delta G negative then? What should be the sign of delta H? Negative. And when this is negative, what process is this? Endo or exothermic? Huh? What process is this? Delta H is negative. Remember? So this is the reaction coordinate. Energy going from here to here. So the delta H of this reaction is negative. Is it exothermic or endothermic? Huh?
Endothermic.
This is exothermic. Think about it. You're releasing energy. Your final delta H has dropped down from the initial. And that's why this is exothermic. So that is why life is an energy dissipating machine. Process. This was kind of Schrodinger's idea, okay, from a thermodynamic perspective, which kind of makes sense. We do actually dissipate energy. That's why if you look at us in infrared light, you will see that we are dissipating energy. In that way, you can say many processes are dissipating energy. That doesn't mean that all these processes are living, right? Black body radiation, so like sun is dissipating energy. Does that mean sun is living? Not necessarily. By our general conception of life, it's not. But it's good to think about life in these terms as well. But there could also be many reactions which can follow this, but those reactions may or may not be life. Okay? So, but I thought this was an interesting way of looking into life. Okay? Okay, moving on. For example, the sun, right? So similar to the previous definitions of fire, whatever. There are processes on the surface of suns like the sunspots that can show some of the characteristics of this MRS grain thing. Some of the characteristics, not everything. But certainly this is not life, okay? But how do we define anything? Right? So we are looking into the definition of life, but how do we define anything? For example, how do you define gold? How do you define gold? Gold is an atom with a very specific proton number, neutron number. Right, that's how you will define gold. That way it will be very different than the definition of an iron or any other element. Okay, so that's how you would define something like gold. Okay, but how do you define a chair? How do you define a chair?
It should be of specific shape and capability of holding some sort of, like there is sitting space kind of. how we know chair is performed, like what is the goal of chair, like to sit?
I can sit on the floor?
Yeah, like
That I can. So what is this? But I can sit here. Does this become chair or a table? It's very difficult to define these things because they don't have a exact physical definition. It's like we are defining a chair. So do you need this backrest? Maybe not. A rock can be a chair. So that's why you can see there's a difference in defining certain things like gold or iron, which have a very specific definition, versus those which do not have a specific definition. Okay? This also reminds me of Plato's forms. Has anyone read Plato? So, okay, I'm not getting into that. So there's a great conception of how do you define things. Plato has done that. So the form of a chair or the form of an animal and things like that. So in this case, it's very difficult. There is no like specific way of doing it, and life is that. So in this kind of exercise, what we are trying to understand is there could be working definitions of life, but not necessarily that these definitions are going to check all the boxes for all the living beings that we generally think of them as living. Okay. Do you have any points to add that we are missing in the definition of life, or what would you think is a definition of life? Because clearly there is no correct definition for life. Similar to the chair, it's you cannot have that definition. So think about it. Anyone wants to add something to it that we are missing, or? Why would you need Darwinian evolution? And do you think Darwinian evolution is exists on Earth, but do you also think that it will exist on other planets? And if yes, what is the timeline of that evolution? So there are big open questions on what is life. Look into the videos that I shared. It will give you some more specific ideas about defining life. What we take for granted is also debated a lot. So that's what this chapter brings us to tells us. Okay, now the other thing is, since we are not able to exactly have like a definition of life, let's have this chemical explanation of life, as a self-sustained chemical system that is capable of Darwinian evolution. And even simpler than that, let's remove the Darwinian evolution for a time. Let's think of life as a self-sustaining chemical system that can do all these MRS Gren things, right? But even before going to this movement, responsiveness, sensitivity, all that, growth, all that, the most basic thing to understand is life as a chemical system. So we're back to Democritus in understanding that, okay, life is just made up of chemical entities or atoms and voids. Okay, there is no vital force, or I must not say that. Let's be open to the idea of even that vital force. Whatever that vital force may be, because I don't know. Right? How do you differentiate between life and something which is just What is the difference between a alive and a dead person in that fraction of a second? Just imagine. You are alive, you are dead. What is the difference? Is there something like the soul? Maybe religions, major religions in the world have a concept of soul. The problem with religion is most of the time it's belief. You don't have empirical data to support it. Maybe they are wrong, maybe they are right, I don't know. What is that life? It's very difficult to actually grasp, like what actually makes something living versus dead. Is the working of the organs? Maybe, but I don't know this, but I'm asking you. What is the most important organ in our body that we will not survive if that goes dead? Heart, maybe brain, maybe both. But is there a situation in which a person is alive and either of these two things are not working? Is it possible?
Sometimes people say brain dead, but still people are alive.
So do you know what brain dead is? I do not know the exact definition.
I do not know the exact definition, but like it's kind of coma, I guess. I don't know.
So maybe your brain is
functional, and with life support system, he can be alive, he or she can be alive.
That's what. I mean, there could be typical medical cases in which either of these things are not working, but you are still considered alive. And then what happens when you are dead? What is the difference between that phase and the other phase? It's very difficult to actually. Religion might be wrong, but science does not have all the answers at this point of time. These are big picture, very big picture, open existential questions, at least for me. We will not get into that existential questions in astrobiology, because this is a question that we do not have any answer. Maybe 500 years from now we will have an answer to that. Who knows? We might. But till then, we at this point of time we do not understand. So let's start with what we do understand. We do understand that we are chemical systems. So let's try to come to chemistry and then start our journey of astrobiology, like from the chemical systems. So in the next chapter we'll start about chemical systems. Okay? Sounds good.